Hello everyone, it is Chantel. Welcome back and thank you for joining me for this little tutorial. This video is unscripted, uncut and unedited. I had some inquiries, people asking me to show you how to make these tags, so I'll do a quick demonstration just showing how I make these cards. They are made from recycled toilet paper rolls, and the first step is just get your clean toilet paper roll. I flatten them out like this and then just use scissors, cut them open on both sides, so you have two cards from just one toilet paper roll. I round the corners. I have a little tool, but you can just use your scissors, whatever you have. And then the next step I do, for these ones, I didn't want to cover all of the card. I sort of wanted to leave the rough edges. So my next step is just, I started collaging on the background, just with some leftover papers I have, whatever glue I have. So I just did a little bit of a collage with different, this is an old dictionary page, a dress pattern paper. So just glue that down. When that is dry, my next step is usually just to work on the background a little bit. So what I do is I do a little bit of an illustration, hand drawing. If you feel you can't draw, you can always just do a bit of stamping just to add some more interest to the background. Most of this will actually get covered by your paint, so it's not the final product, so don't get too fussed about what you're doing in the background. It is just creating a bit of interest for your eye. And then my next step is always to add a bit of gesso, because I am going to apply color with a mixture of acrylic paints, but also my Inktense watercolor inks. So that's the layer of gesso done already, and you have to leave this to dry. My next step then will be to add color, and I've already done it to the back side, but I'll give you a short demonstration on how I add color. I have tiny bits of my favorite acrylic paint over here, and I usually do a mixture of using my palette knife or just my fingers. So I'll just go in a tiny bit of paint on my palette knife and just start adding some color to my card. And this is just random. I don't plan anything specific where I'm going to put down what color. And I'll do a bit of green. I don't want too much green, so I'll rather do that with just here and there, add a bit with my finger. That's more or less enough for me. And then my favorite color is this, I think it's called Spearmint by Kaisercraft, this lighter teal color, and I'll also just go in random spots with my finger and just add that to the background. I'll go in, once this layer is dried, I'll go back in with gesso and my palette knife, and also with a bit of golden acrylic paints. Just add a bit more there. So that's mainly it. I love to add little circles, so I usually use this lid, one of my containers, and I just sort of ink it up with my leftover acrylic paints, and I'll maybe just add a circle there. I like to do double circles, don't know why, I just think they look cool. Just give this one a quick clean, and that's basically the first layer of paint done. Now you need to let this dry completely before you add your next layer, otherwise you're just going to end up with a big mess of muddled and mixed paints. So my next step then is, after this is dry, I have another one here that's dried already. I will go back in with my gesso and my palette knife. So I have this, put this aside, just a tiny bit of gesso like that, and I'll just go back in and just randomly add some of the white back in, so the colors are not too overpowering, and that's all. I won't add too much. And then again, you need to leave this to dry, and after that I'll go in and do exactly the same, just with a little bit of gold. I have the Kaiser color acrylic paint metallic gold, and I'll add a tiny bit of gold just to have that little bit of shiny element as well. So just here and there, very small amounts. Just remember to let every layer dry before you add the next one. So I'll be careful not to touch where I've added my gesso just now. A little bit of gold there, I hope you can see. And then I'll leave that to dry completely. And what my next step then is usually just going in with my watercolors and a very thin or tiny brush. I'll just pick up a little bit of color and then do a couple of splatters. And I'll even go in on my palette. I have a little bit of coffee. Go in and do a couple of coffee splatters as well, just to get that antique color on there as well. So these my splatters, I leave those to dry before I move on to the next step. So I have one sort of completed already and dry, doing these steps that I will just finish off on camera. So this is the background done. Now we're going to do the layering on top, which is my image, the quote that I've chosen to use. So I'll just get in and finish that off. On these cards I am using butterflies because I do love the butterflies, and for a different project I had to cut a lot of butterfly images, so I have still loads of them left over. So I have my quote. I have a vintage typewriter, so I'll whenever I read a quote that I really love, I will go and type it on a piece of scrap paper or card and just have it in my little words jar that I can use for future projects. So what all that's left is the what we are going to do in the top layer, which will be the focus of the card. So there I just play around with whatever I have, and I love using tissue paper, so I'll do another tiny collage on top of my background. But the difference here is I'm not gluing everything down, letting it lay flat. I want some unglued edges, so I'll just add a tiny bit of glue there and glue that down. And I'll do this on camera so you can see. Yeah, that's more or less. I love making these cards at night time when I'm alone. Find them very relaxing, so I'll just add a little bit of glue. Then I'll stick this one down. I don't want to glue the edges. I'm just doing a little bit of a collage on top of, in the foreground, because that's going to be my focus, the focus of my card. And for this card I'm just going to use half of a butterfly wing. I'm not going to use the whole butterfly image. I'll just sort of eyeball whatever I think looks good. I think I like it that way more. Just layer it a little bit here. Oh, before that I forgot about the cotton. I love adding cotton, so I'll just grab a bit of cotton. I want that underneath these 2 layers, just before my glue dries. I'll have a bit of cotton here, maybe just like that, just as an extra, create some interest. With all the different layers, all you are doing is creating different focal points for your eye, which makes it really interesting. Lots of different things to look at. Okay, and I'll just sort of glue that down with my tea bag. This is a tiny postage stamp I have, that I stamped on a upcycled tea bag, reused dried out tea bag. So that's more or less, want those sides to be free, not glued down. That's that. I have this, I think I'm going to add it there, and then I'll do my butterfly wing. All the butterfly images I'm using on my cards are images that I downloaded from the internet. They are free, they don't have copyright on. They are free. I just print them on normal copy paper and then just sit and fussy cut them while I'm watching TV or whatever, whenever I have spare time. What I do like to do with these, because I don't always like the white at the back of the wing, is I will go in, I'll show you on a different one, I will go in and just give it a light wash of tea or coffee at the back, just to age it a little bit, but also just to get rid of that very bright white at the back. And I'll do that and just leave it to dry, and then I'll glue it down here, or you can glue it down and go back in afterwards, which I'm going to do for the sake of this demonstration. So I'll just glue down my wing there, and I like to cut the wings separate, or just a little slit in them, and I'm just using a skewer just to curl them a little bit so they don't lay completely flat. It creates the illusion that they are a bit more three-dimensional. So I'll do that, then just add a tiny bit of glue just to the very edge of the butterfly. I usually use the hot glue gun for this. I don't have enough space on my table. And I'll just glue that one down, just there. And I'll just press down just so the glue can take, just like that. Cool. So that's the butterfly wing done, and I'll go in and just glue down my quote on this side. These ones are a bit tiny, so I use an old pair of tweezers just to hold and get them in place. They are really tiny, but they look cool once you've added them. Oops. Now I'll have my quote to the left side of my card. And all that's left to do is maybe just add the ribbon. And once again, I'm not pressing down very firm because I do want the sides to stick up. Makes it look a bit more 3D than just having everything flat on the page. This one says the smallest ray. And I'm also careful to do it a little bit random, so it's not perfectly aligned and in a straight line. It's the smallest ray of sunshine. Smallest ray of hope, sorry, the quote says. Smallest ray of hope can change everything. I don't want to bore you with me gluing down these tiny little words, but I'm hoping to complete the card so you can see from start to finish. I usually don't make these cards so fast. I'm just trying to keep the video short as possible. I like to take my time and relax, have a nice cup of tea or coffee while I'm doing this, have some nice music in the background. Usually I'm in my bubble, away from the bigger bubble, just spending some time apart and by myself. This is a really good way, I find, to relax. Just focus on something that I enjoy. So that's done. Let me just check if I'm still typing. Cool, so we're still going, and I'll just add my the hole to the card and add the ribbon, and then we are almost done. I'll share my last step. I always leave it for last. So more or less, not exact measurements, but I just sort of want to get an idea of where the middle of the card is. This one is 6.5, so I'll just mark it just on the edge of 3 there somewhere, and I just have a normal hole punch. I don't have one of those fancy single ones. I'll just go in, just do the little hole, and I'll add my ribbon. It's not exactly in the middle, but that's okay. And I have this ribbon. I find for the little cards 15 millimeters, or is it centimeters? 15 centimeters is quite enough for the ribbon. And I'll just go in like this, add my ribbon. And for all of these cards that I make, I do paint both the front and the back. I don't like it when the back of the cards are unfinished and raw. They should look pretty as well. So that's that one done. The very last thing I do for my cards, I always add some white splatters on top. And for that I just use whatever white acrylic paint I have available. This is titanium white by Reeves. I have it on my palette here already. And also just going in with a clean, fairly wet brush, just picking up a bit of the white paint. Might need some more water for this one. Yep, needs to be quite runny. And I'll go in and just add a bit of white splatters as well. I'll just do 1 or 2 on the image itself. You can always go in with a Uniball gel marker, or a white paint marker as well. I just have quite a bit of white paint. Cool. So that's the very last step, and now I will just leave them to dry completely. And that is my tiny toilet roll tags. These specific cards I'm making for our neighbors. We are doing small gift bags for next week once we get out of level 4 lockdown, just with a bit of treats, a small gift, just letting them know that we are here and thinking of them. So these tags will go with the gift bags. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. If you want to know if you need any information about the supplies I'm using, any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Take care, stay safe and healthy, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye for now.